Episode 3.
Episode 3.
Episode 3.
So we thought we'd talk about things that we're doing at the moment or very recently, one of which is a beautiful collaboration with a Cambodian artist, mainly a conceptual visual artist, I would say, Vuth Lyno from Phnom Penh, and who you met, didn't you?
Yeah, I met him a couple of years ago in Taiwan as part of Asia Discovers Asia meeting. They had an artist lab. There were about 12 of us through the Asian region, and Australia was a part of that. And yeah, we connected in that lab. And
then we've had a few kind of online interactions with Lyno over the past lockdown year, and he very, very kindly asked us to be involved in a commission that he had for a festival in Busan, or just outside of Busan, called the Sea Arts Festival.
Yeah, it's part of the Busan Biennale.
Yeah. And briefly, he had proposed a sculptural interpretation of this site just near the beach, where there was this grandma shrine and a grandpa shrine up the hill, and he was proposing a kind of portal, a gateway in the shape of the outline of the shrine, which was a mirror which you could look and then see the sea behind you. Obviously, there's a whole heap of stuff to do with beliefs and traditions around the sea, being a kind of a maritime tradition there. The fishing people used to get lost at sea. There's an amazing tradition of female divers who go out and deep sea dive for different products from the sea. They have this extraordinary way of communicating by whistling as they sort of are about to dive, and they come up again and they're whistling, and so there's this rich kind of thing that we were really fortunate to be involved in, and we were going to make some sound for this installation.
So we're from Australia, Lyno's from Cambodia. It's a commission for Busan, for a small village, and we are outsiders. We're all outsiders. So we had to work out together how we can make something that sits within that environment with the shared values that we have with Lyno around respect and cultural respect and invitation. So, and there was definitely a passageway. There was definitely a passageway from the grandmother shrine to the grandfather shrine. Actually a passageway of trees, a pathway for local people was right next to houses. And the festival's going to run for a month. So we had to think about the way that sound works over a period of time when you're sitting within a residential area, and what as a local person you might like to hear, what as a local person you might come in contact with daily. And so that was part of the thinking around that, about how that can work time-wise and then also content-wise. And so then we began a series of conversations with the festival about who we would like to talk to. There's a tradition in Korea that there's a village head, so we spoke first with the village head, and then a set of conversations happened after that. And then this beautiful thing that happens always like this, that there's this unfolding set of serendipities which end up with us meeting a professor who'd made a series of recordings with local people in that place singing about 15 years ago. So a whole set of those materials came together. We made a piece, a sort of 5-channel piece, where the speakers are in the trees between these sites that happen at particular times of the day that feel restful and respectful to the people who are there, but also a time when an audience might come. Thousands of people come for this festival. So yeah, that was some of the considerations that we were thinking about what needs to be held there, about sound in public place, right? Sound in public place and repetition, these are very important things to think about when you're doing work like that. This work, similarly, we didn't experience, and Lyno didn't experience, and so we had a very lively WhatsApp group with the festival and the festival producer, where a lot of material, a lot of information about what's happening and what's it look like, what's it sound like, how do we understand this place, all that input is coming in, and then we're trying to bring it to life in our imaginations in the studio and then send it back. That's just been bumped out, that work. And it's the beginning now for us of, well, we've had a making relationship now with Lyno, which was really a great process. And then the artistic director, Ridika Biswas, is a young artistic director of this festival. She was a really key part of the way that we worked. So it's open, it's like a new part in the collective, in the expanding collective. Yeah. The other thing we wanted to talk about is where we are right now, like we said in episode 1. This is the Science Gallery, and we have been in virtual residence here after a couple of days in physical residence. And how things have manifested here, totally not what we thought they were going to be. Of course, like for everybody.
It's funny, you think of a residency as you go to a place, you get kind of inspired and make stuff or something like that. We really made connections, didn't we? Maybe because of the fact that it was mostly virtual, but and we did make some things in different ways, but there's just been this sort of expanding web of connection with different people doing interesting things. Yeah. And a lot of it crosses into sound, scientists working with sound in ways that are different or not that different actually, to the way that we might work with sound.
How it manifested specifically here was we made this thing called a listening club. And this was a collab with here and Arts House. And it was just a 3-week series, sort of like a podcast, a live radio thing, where we invited one artist and one scientist to talk about where sound sits in their practice. And we also asked them to share something, either from their own practice or from their own research, to play for everybody to listen to, and then invited them to leave us all with something about what, from their expertise, what would they like, a question they'd like to leave with us around listening. So that was that form came from being here and really just thinking about we've been talking to people and finding these intersections across practice that maybe people hadn't experienced. Practice being art practice and science in many different ways. For example, Johanna Trippus, who's a computer science person, thinking about the sound of AI and thinking about the sound of an artificial voice, thinking about intersections like that with virtual assistants and embedded biases within that. Raoul Mulder, who's an ecologist who's particularly interested in birds and specific adaptions in birds through sound.
And Helena Bender, who has fantastic specificity about the things that a lot of scientists do, and she's studied the very soft communications that kangaroos make when they're wanting to warn the rest of what they call the crew of kangaroos, and they tap their foot on the ground. And she's, you couldn't really imagine a much quieter sound than the sound of a kangaroo beating its foot on the ground to warn the other kangaroos.
Yeah, a vibrational call. Yeah. And then the artists we invited were Lou Bennett, who's amazing Yorta Yorta woman. I don't know, if you don't know her, look her up. It was like amazing practice. And she brought a proposition around deep listening and listening to where we are. And then Victoria Pham,
Yep.
who's thinking about decolonising our listening. And then, oh my God,
Bridget.
I forgot Bridget's surname.
Chapel.
Thanks, Timmy.
Right.
Hextape. Hextape. Bridget Chapel, who's got this sort of interest in sirens and warning signals, which we share. So we've really connected there. And she brought, do you want to talk about what she brought? The siren event?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Soviets, you know, in the early days of the Russian Revolution, there was this, probably you would call it avant-garde. It's sort of a historical term, the avant-garde now, isn't it? But they were trying different things, and one of the things that this particular group of people, I would say, but probably led by one composer in particular, Avramov, I think his name is, we're trying to get the whole city and, you know, as many forces as possible in the one space to sound.
Yeah.
And he called it the Symphony of Sirens. And so she played it's actually I think the reconstruction sort of this event as the people who reconstructed thought it might have sounded.
Yeah.
I mean, it's shrouded in myth and mystery. Some people say it never actually occurred. Some people say it was a dismal failure.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think the forces were gathered, like there was naval ships, there was cannons, there was big bands, there was factory sirens, there was train whistles, you know, the whole deal. And which is, you know, such a sort of, oh, wow, what an idea, you know. So she was inspired by that.
Yeah, she was inspired by that,
Yeah.
and she brought that.
And she brought that to us.
Listening club.
And I think, you know, it's sort of part of that futurist sort of thing, and about the idea of the modern noise world, you know, that whole canon of noise work, and which continues, of course, you know, and which has now been integrated, you would say, into most of the music we hear, actually. Yeah.
So this intersection between these people, the artists and scientists, we weren't trying to like speed date.
No.
It wasn't about that.
No.
It was just about actually for the listener. It was going to happen in the listener's head. It's like they put these parallel sets of thoughts into the listener, and let's see what space it makes in you as the listener. That was the intention in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think we're hoping to present something here next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what's happened is what you hope happens.
Yeah.
In that a spark of a relationship has led to some ongoing mutual interests, really.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
So thank you very much for listening to us. We want to leave you with a little, what would you say, suggestion, which really is the suggestion that comes out of the listening club thing that we did here, or virtually here, over the past couple of months. And that is, I think, don't be afraid to challenge assumptions, and things aren't set in stone, and they can be changed. And that's one of the great things about working with sound. It's quicksilver. It flows in many different ways. It goes one way then the other, and it's an infinite possibility.
Yeah, quicksilver, that's a great word. I think about it as the space that sound creates is an abstract one in which the people who listen bring and understand something. So that's sort of the joy of the making space in sound, that there's not a telling, there's an invitation to open.
You're making space
Yeah.
to make what you want within that world.
Yeah.